Okay, I think we are online and live. Cool. All right, hello. Welcome. It's going to be a really casual stream. I just wanted to drop some information on you guys with regards to Android Studio. Um, there's a few tutorials out there, and I figured I'd just make my own and put my own spin on it. So I figured I can just walk you guys through how to make your first Android Studio project on Windows. So first thing you're going to do, you already have one Android Studio installed, right? So you're going to open up Android Studio and you're going to be presented with this screen here. And this is basically like the launch point screen. So you're going to have a bunch of your previous projects going here, and you have options to start a new project or basically move forward in different ways. So the most common option you're going to do is just you're going to open a new project. You're going to open an existing project. You're going to basically import it from version control, which is like GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever. And then you're going to use a already existing profile or debug APK. And then you can also import a project from a different Grail or Eclipse location. And then you can just import a native Android code sample. But we're going to start off with just starting a new Android Studio project. And here we have the activity selection screen. So this is basically what you're going to be starting with on your new project. So this is what's going to happen here. We just came from this, basically this stuff, and then we're going to go start new. That's effectively it. Sorry, I had the last screen on there. So here we go. And then you got the activities. So you can just start with no activity, or you can do a basic one, which basically just has a tab bar and then an app bar, and then you have a floating action button, which Android just basically preloads for you, and then it gives you just a snack bar that pops up saying, hey, this action's working. Here you go. You can do with me as you please. So this is basically just a standard, casual one. It has like basically support for back buttons and stuff in your app bar, and then the overflow menu. So this one's fine if you already know that you're going to be using a fab or a floating action button, but I don't usually use this one. I usually use the empty activity, which is essentially a blank slate, as the name implies. It's empty, so it doesn't have any widgets or elements on the layout. That's basically your blank starting off point. So you can add whatever. There's no overflow menu. That you can just have a clean slate to start off with. When you have the bottom navigation activity, you're effectively going to have these bottom navigation buttons on your screen. So they're going to be anchored to the bottom of your screen. So you're going to have like your home or your search or your account. So like basically, if you want to have a couple of options at the bottom of your screen, you can use those, and then you can jump to different points of your app with an anchored location such as that. And with full screen activity, I usually use these for introductions to the application for the first time. It's like a splash screen or loading or whatever, and like, hey, welcome. This is how you kind of use the app. Blah 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 blah. And you're gonna have this, and then it's gonna you can like throw like a icon or whatever, say, hey, this is how you can go through, and then you can jump to the next activity. So it creates a new activity. It toggles the visibility of the system UI. So effectively, it imitates the full screen effect. And then it also presents the action bar upon user interaction as well. This is for inserting an ad activity. So when you're playing your mobile games, you can have the ads show up intermittently throughout. So that's basically a way you can interject your ads. Google Maps, so you can have a Google Map view there. Login, so it creates a new login activity, allowing the users to enter an email address and password to log in or to register with your application. So I'm sure you've all seen that kind of layout before. Master and detail flow. This is really great, flexible UI activity. Basically what it does is, depending on your screen size, it can display elements a certain way. So this is more of like a tablet layout here. So if you're on your tablet, you have a bigger screen, you have more real estate, so you can pack different fragments of the activity. So basically your parts or your sections, your modules of your activity into different parts of the screen so that they can be presenting the user with more information at the same time. So you can basically have your navigation stuff here. This is or like your options for basically choosing different content or whatever. And this is your exploded view for it. So as you can tell, if this item is selected, it shows this kind of content. Gmail is really popular for using this kind of master detail flow, especially on tablets and even on the site as well. This is also a really popular activity to use for just when your app gets a bit too big for a couple of these guys down here, or I guess up here in this case, you would use a navigation drawer activity. So if you have a lot more options that are kind of similar in the hierarchy, then you can use the navigation drawer activity. So basically, it would swipe in from the edge of your screen, and then you have like your account information up top, different actions listed here, maybe like a settings thing at the bottom. So this is really powerful, and it just hides away nicely, and it tucks into your hamburger menu icon on the top there. Settings activity is basically, pretty self-explanatory. You adjust settings in your app. It allows you to configure application settings, pretty much it. With a scrolling activity, you have this really nice, I guess you could say fluid interface here where you have a image or whatever texture, whatever you want to have that up there, and then you have your title, and then you can have your content. So more for reading an article or something like that, and you can have the thumbnail of the article, and then your body of your content. You can have like your like or your favorite, whatever, and then the fab is actually anchored to this point here. So as you scroll, it'll shrink the image and then hide it into the app bar, which is really nice, and then it'll basically handle scrolling by itself because it's in a scroll view, right? So. And then we got tabbed. I like using this one a lot. This one basically, it's really self-intuitive, or sorry, self-explanatory, but also user-intuitive. Basically, you can swipe in between the activity tabs here, so you can have whatever you want. You can just lay out whatever you want on there, and then you can say, hey, this is like the home, or this is like the contacts and phone calls, whatever, and you can swipe in between, or you can just hit the tabs. So it gives the user a bunch of different interactions or ways to interact with the interface at that point. And you can use the fragment in conjunction with the view model. That's a bit more advanced, so we're not going to look at that at this time. And then you can also make a new activity with C++. So that's cool. I haven't really done this. So we're just going to go into basic activity. So we're going to hit next. And this is where you name your application. So we're going to do it, let's go YouTube test app, like that, right? And then you can give it a package name. So this is basically how your application is going to be stored in your domain or on the device. So you would have the app name, effectively, your company or whatever, here we go, let's go like that. This would be your company domain or your developer domain. That's how you would be identified in the Android file system. And then this is where you would save your application, your files there, and then you can choose your language, which is Java or Kotlin. So Kotlin is the language specifically made for, I guess, developing Android. And so this is basically Google's in-house Kotlin programming language. It's really cool. So we're just going to stick with Java for now, and this is where you can choose your software development kit or SDK. So effectively, it gives you this little, Android Studio gives you this little statistic here on how many devices your application would support based on what SDK level you choose. So if you go lower down to Ice Cream Sandwich 4.0, that's your lowest you can go at, you will basically be able to run on 100% of Android devices in the world. You wouldn't want to do this because you have to find the sweet spot yourself, because you wouldn't want to do setting your API so low where you would miss out on better and newer features on the later versions. So you kind of want to find the sweet spot of like where you want to support to and up till. So I usually go to 5.0 Lollipop or even 5.1. It's interesting because when you hit 5.0, you can run on 94%, which is I like that percentage, that's all. But then as you go up, you're gonna support less devices because less devices are running the higher software versions. So if you go to Nougat 7.1.1, you're going to be supported, 66.2% of devices approximately. And if you go to like Q, you're going to be less than 10%, right? So I usually go around 5.0, 6.0 maybe because we got like basically a healthy majority of the devices on. So, you're not going to have too much trouble or you're not going to be staying up all night wondering, oh, is this person in like South Africa with their, cheap phone going to be able to run my app if they don't have Marshmallow or whatever? Then you can lower it down if you're concerned about that. But then you also have to worry about the trade-offs there with feature support and different kinds of functionalities. So once you've done all that, you can just hit finish. It's going to build your project. It's going to take a bit. And then once it's all loaded, I'm just going to full screen this for you here. You have effectively your app. My Android Studio looks a lot different than yours because I got a couple themes on it, naturally. But it's going to be having Gradle, which is the automation software, handle all your projects and like all your good stuff, having your tasks. And so that's going to be loading at the same time. So once that guy's done and you got your Gradle all set up, it usually takes a bit. But in the meantime, we're going to look at the main activities. This is basically how your activity is going to be displayed to you as a backend developer of this project. It's going to be showing your whole Java file, which I hope you're going to be familiar with here. So this is how your activity is going to be constructed and displayed to the screen. And if I'm losing some hitches here, because Gradle is just taking a hit, that's okay. Gradle's going to champion this, and then hopefully this figures itself out. And of course, you got to do dark mode all the things. So I'm using the Material Darker plugin, and I've done a couple custom, what's it called? Colors. So that's why it looks very funky and not close to how Android Studio usually looks. And so on your left-hand side here, it's going to be showing your navigation pane. So this is how you're going to jump back and forth in between various aspects of your application, from your layout files to your code files, and then you have your build.gradle file, and then you have your Gradle properties file and whatever, and your settings.gradle. So you basically have your navigation on this side. So I like to keep it there, and I like to keep it kind of consistently there, but always visible either way. If I'm going to be looking at UI, or if I'm going to be doing the backend code, this guy always needs to be here. It's just basically how I anchor myself in my application. Okay, and then you got your top end toolbar stuff here. So you got your file, you got your edit. And the stream is taking a tank here, so that's fantastic. Hey, what a time. What a time to be alive, guys. Gradle is just murdering. We got one person watching. Thanks, one person watching. Say hi in the chat. Oh, this is great. This is hilarious. All right, you can do it, Gradle. Okay, so we got the basically the standard toolbar stuff here. So we got file, edit, view, navigate, code, analyze, refactor, build, run, tools, version control system, window, and then your help. I don't really use the help thing too much. I don't find it terribly useful. If I need to find something faster, I use the double shift command, which is basically just finding whatever is related to your project based on whatever you type. I'm not sure if this video output low thing is going to affect the VOD, but it's probably affecting the stream quite a bit. So I'm just going to keep talking in the meantime. Sorry for the one person watching right now. Okay, are we back up here? We're looking good. Gradle's done. We're all set. And effectively, our event dialog here is pretty much okay. All right. We're looking good. We're looking good. Cool. Okay, so as I was saying, I like to keep my navigation thing always open here. If you want, there's different suggested layouts here you can choose for your project and how it's displayed and the structure of it. You can basically, I flip back and forth between Android and the project view here. So this basically shows it how it is in your file system, and then Android is basically how it constructs and delivers the visuals to you based on what's most relevant to your actual Android project. So we got your drawables and your layout files here, and then you got your menu, which is auto-generated. Remember when we were talking about the, let's just go to activity menu for a second. Let's have a look at this. So if you double click on whatever file you're looking for, and then here you go. So this is what your first fragment is going to look like here. And you got your toolbar up top, your floating action button, as you saw it over here. This is where my, basically, it's kind of like Chrome, where you have all your tabs and all your activities and stuff, and your files open. You know, you can have your images open here, you can have your drawables, whatever, your layout files. So I kind of like to keep them separated, such as we got Java on the left-hand side, and if I hit Control twice, we're going to run anything. And then I like to have my layout stuff on the side here. Okay, so this theme also colors things very wacky, but so it looks probably very different to what your Android Studio is looking like. But the principle is still the same, and things are still generally in the right spot. But before you do anything else, though, when you're getting yourself situated, you need to go to File and then Settings. All right, or you can just hit Control Alt S. And then once you're there, you want to go to Appearance and Behavior. You want to hit Appearance. And then you want to hit from your theme, you want to make sure it is Darkula. Okay? Please, for the love of all that is your eyes and bright lights, hit Darkula. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk this evening. Okay? This basically will flip everything to dark theme if you don't have it already. So, if you do, fantastic. That's all I wanted to show you. If you guys want, I can make a separate video later on going through each one of the appearance stuff, because I've tweaked a bunch of things. But at this point, I just have it as the material darker stuff. So actually, well, it is Darkula to begin with, but then I just added material darker, which is the plugin. And also something that is important is effectively your editor tweaks, where you can see how different things interact with your editor and basically colors and stuff, but also You have like limits for recent files, or just basically just general things that can affect your coding from the day to day. So effectively, code completion. This is really important. Like changing. Like Android Studio is really granular in this way, where it's really um, cool that they give you this opportunity to really get in and do whatever you want with it. But it's also pretty daunting at some points because you just don't know what stuff does, or they try and tell you what it does, but you don't know why you need to know about this. Um, but this is basically all here, and so if you guys want, I can go through all of these settings for you at a later time, but we're not going to go into there for now. I just want to make sure you guys are on the dark theme. Okay, and then something else that's really important is your Run tab. Your Run tab is basically your app you're going to be using every time you need to make sure something works. You either hit Run here or Run App. You can use the shortcut, which is Shift F10, or you can just use the command right here, which is Run App. And so once your app is already running, these buttons here, which is effectively your apply changes. So if you change something in your code, but your app is already running, Android Studio is smart enough to figure out what you changed and then updates the app accordingly within the device that it's running at the same time. And then this guy just apply code changes, which is if you don't have something that's like super activity changing, then you can use this, and then it'll just update and just interject your code changes, and then you can see what changed and see if it was basically the intended effect. So all while keeping your activity running, this guy just does a hard kill and then a hard refresh on the activity, so it starts it from scratch effectively. Something also is of note. You can go to your version control, so VCS, and you can import stuff or generate stuff on GitHub. So you can make a new GitHub repository. So that's cool. All right, that's all I'm going to do for now, guys. Um, for now, that's all we're going to do. And then thanks for tuning in. And yeah, peace out. Got any questions? Let me know in the comments. Have a good one.